Hello everyone, welcome to the MSP Mesh YouTube channel. This is a quick video to help you with the basic parameters to join the MSP Mesh. This video will focus on iOS users, although it will look very similar if you're on a Mac. But future videos will cover the same process for Android and for the web client. Here in the Twin Cities, we have outgrown the default Meshtastic parameters, and so we've swapped over to medium fast, and with that, channel 45. I will also cover some of the other basics for configuration, such as device roles and broadcast counts and hops and things like that. You can find a more complete article on this topic at mspmesh.org/settings. But for now, I will move over to the Meshtastic app. So this is what you'll see when you first power on your device. I would recommend updating to the latest firmware before you do any configuration. We will cover that in a future video, but for now, you power on your device and your phone should recognize it. If it is a device you've never connected to before, you will likely need to enter a passcode, a 6-digit Bluetooth PIN. If the device has a screen, it will probably display the passcode randomly generated on the screen of the device, and you'll have to enter it on your phone. If the device does not have a screen, just try the passcode 123456. That should work. In my case, I have connected to it before, so I click on the device and it'll connect to the radio, and you'll see set LoRa region. That means the device is unconfigured right now. One other tip, if you have connected to the device before, but you're having trouble with it right now, go to your phone's Bluetooth settings and forget the device. That should solve the issue. So anyway, here we are, and you see the Set LoRa Region button. You can click on that and it will take you to settings, but I will click down here on the bottom right, and that will take us to settings as well. So you can see here at the top of the bottom bank, LoRa, that's where it would have taken us. We select that. Under region, set the United States. That'll get us to the correct bank of frequencies. And then under presets, we have to change it from long range fast to medium range fast. Scrolling down, we'll find hop count and frequency slot. Frequency slot 0 should bring us to 45 because that's the default for medium fast, but it probably doesn't hurt to manually enter 45 in here and save just in case something else gets messed up. When you see this message, that means the device will reboot, and so you will briefly lose connection. You'll see over here, the radio is disconnected from us. The device is rebooting, and once it does, it should reconnect, no problem. And it's reconnecting, and you can see the set LoRa region went away. So our changes were saved. Back to settings under LoRa. The one other thing I forgot to do before I did that was the hop count. You can see our settings saved, United States, medium range fast. Back down to your hop count, I'm going to set this to 4. You can see our website for more guidance. I'm inside of the ring road, and so 4 hops should be appropriate for what I'm trying to do. If I was out in a rural area, maybe I could go higher, but 4 or 5 is probably a good number to stick with. So there's that. So the next thing to check will be under channels. All of the meshing, so to speak, that the device does without your input goes out over what is in your 0 channel slot. And so you have to have the same default channel or primary channel as everyone else on the mesh in your 0 slot. So if you delete this one and then try to add it back, that's where a lot of the problems get. That's how you end up on random channels. In this case, 0 is our primary channel, as is default. I would just keep it with the default name, the default key, AQ ==. That is the standard, that's what everyone else is using. One thing to keep an eye out for is by default your position is enabled, and so I would recommend turning that off until you're comfortable, depending on the use case for the node. You see there were some menu options for obfuscation. You can pick a circle. If you're going to do this, please pick a smaller circle. It ends up making the map look really weird for certain users if you have a bunch of massive circles on there. So you can use some obfuscation, or you can spoof the GPS, but if it's going to be sitting in your house, I would recommend maybe shutting this off unless you're comfortable. You can always share the location over different private channels, and so only people who you give access to those channels will see it, but that's a topic for a later video. So anyway, we have the default channel here, we have the normal key, I turned off positions, that's all we need to do for now. Back out in the main menu, we'll come down to user. This is how you're going to name your node. The short name can be up to 4 characters, including emojis. if the emoji's name is shorter than 4 characters. We don't need to get into that, but most common emojis can be used. And then, of course, there's the long name option. Different people have different naming conventions. You can change yours. It's up to you, essentially. You could leave it as default until you want to make a decision on that front. You can also set your node to be unmessageable. We don't recommend using the licensed operator. Even if you are a ham, IM, it comes with a lot of restrictions and not a lot of benefits, and so that's something we don't really advise. Back in the main menu, you can see device settings. We'll select that next. Here's where we can select the device role. By default, it's client. In my case, right now, this is a Pocket node that I'm setting up, and so I will set this to client mute. Please, if you're a beginner, just stick with client mute or client. Under no circumstances should you use repeater mode, and router mode is only for the best infrastructure nodes. There are some other interesting ones here, client hidden, router late, but we won't get into those for the time being. TLDR, never use repeater. Most of the time, everything should be client mute, but if you have a decent node, at the top of your roof line or in a tall office building or something, maybe it can be on client. So we'd recommend leaving rebroadcast mode to all. This contributes the most to the mesh. Even if people are using private channels, you can help them. 3 hours is a pretty good place to leave node info broadcast interval. If this node is going to be powered on most of the time and is in a very good position, you could increase this, but please don't do any less time than 3 hours just to relieve network congestion. There's a couple of other options. Those are pretty self-explanatory. None of them are super important. Here you'll also see reset node DB. It just resets kind of your Rolodex of nodes that you've heard from. And then factory reset, hopefully doesn't come to that, but it is good to know where that button is. And then I'll click save to save my parameters that I entered earlier. The last thing I'll cover briefly today is position. I turned position sharing off for this node, and I'd recommend you do the same unless you need to track something, but if you'd like to, smart position is probably a good way to go. You can set 3 different parameters. You can set the minimum distance, the minimum interval, and the maximum interval. And so depending on what you're trying to track, you can work these around as you will, but be conscious of how much airtime you use and not do some ridiculous configuration that's going to absolutely flood the mesh with packets. So if you're putting it in your car and you want people to see where your car is, great, but I would certainly consider how accurate you want that to be and how often that needs to go out. If you're installing an infrastructure node that doesn't have a GPS, you can actually set a fixed position. This is potentially a nice thing to do so that people have a vague idea of where the nodes they see actually are, but that is optional. So that'll be all for today. We covered the basics. Hopefully you're on medium fast channel 45, and if you didn't do anything crazy with the primary channel, you should start hearing nodes in your node database. I've already gotten 4 in the time I have been recording this video, and I'm in a brick building with a bad antenna. So hopefully you start seeing some traffic. If you don't, join our Discord, reach out to people. If you're in a rural area, you're going to have to work a little harder for it potentially. Better antennas, higher elevation, etc. But we can try to help you through the Discord. Also, check out the webpage that this video is based on. It has a lot more detail than I went into in certain areas. That's mspmesh.org/settings, and we will hope to see you on the mesh.